Titan of Mediation, part 3 of our interview with Dr. Habib Chamoun-Nicholas, part of the series Manousso Musings, with seasoned mediator trainer Dr. Barbara Manousso. That is our topic for today. Welcome to the Lawyers and Mediators International Show and podcast by instantmediations.com, where we discuss law and conflict resolution topics to educate both professionals and everyday people. Catch regular episodes on YouTube, the Instant Mediations app, and anywhere you get your podcasts. Just remember, nothing in these episodes constitutes legal advice, so be sure to talk to a lawyer, as cases are fact-dependent. Hello again, this is Mac Pierre-Louis, attorney, mediator, and arbitrator, working throughout Florida and Texas.
And Natalia Ołowska-Czajka, advocate, mediator, and arbitrator from Warsaw, Poland.
And I'm Dr. Barbara Manousso. I am a trainer, and I also mediate and arbitrate. And I am delighted that our guest today for part 3 of a series on negotiation is Dr. Habib Chamoun-Nicholas. And Dr. Chamoun is a professor. He's been a businessman. He works in a lot of corporate areas where he helps the companies learn to negotiate. He is an author, and his books on negotiation really transform the industry and have helped so many people. And I am just delighted to have a copy of a book from him going back to 2016 that was autographed. And so we've asked Dr. Chamoun today to come talk about Transcend, what that means, what the term means, and how that impacts negotiation. So Dr. Chamoun, welcome, and please thank you for sharing your wisdom. And you've written 8 books, and the 3 that are in this series, this is the 3rd of the 3. So tell us what brought you to this point of how this not only changes negotiation, but has a broader base. Please.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Dr. Manousso, Natalia, Mark. Thank you for having me here. And let me tell you, I guess, after analyzing negotiations and different cultures and, and the theories already in the literature, they actually mention in general that there is 2 types of negotiation, the distributive or the haggling, right? I give you 10, you give me 7, and then you compromise and so on. That's one type. The second type, it is the Harvard method, which is the interest behind the position. Then you understand the interest, then you generate options based on the communication relationship. Then you can actually generate an alternative to an agreement or make a deal, right? So in a nutshell, those are the 2 types. Well, that's not enough. We need to come up with a 3rd one, which is the transcendental negotiation, which means it is also interest-based, like the second one, but it's more transcendental, transgenerational. It is not only one generation, but the second one. King David, going back to the history, King David wanted to build a temple for God, and he hired a contractor, King Hiram from Phoenicia. So then he couldn't build it, but King Solomon built it, the next generation. And who's the contractor? The same contractor. Why? Because of reputation, credibility, all of that is built through the ages. So transcendental negotiation goes not only one generation, but the next generation. Coming back to our days today, I'll give you a quick example. I went to Toledo, Spain, and I had one of my students from the MBA program negotiating in a small store. So he comes to the front desk and he goes to the cashier and he says, it was priced on 50 euros, 50, and he said, I'll give you 25. And the Spaniard in Toledo said, not possible. And then the student said, well, 28. And he said, not possible. And 29, not possible. 50, 40, not possible. And so I asked the owner, can I talk to my student? He didn't know it was my student. So I talked to him and I said, why do you ask him why it's not possible? Oh, he said, Professor, you're brilliant. And I say, oh, you're gonna fail this class. I'm kidding, right? So anyway, so the point is that he asked me why it's not possible. He said because it has a small fracture, you cannot see it. And I asked, and then I can give it to you for €5. And then my question is why he didn't sell it for 25, or he didn't sell it for 26. I asked the owner, and he said, because it's not about me, it's not about my store. He's going to forget about me. He's going to forget about my store. It's about Toledo, Spain, our reputation, the community. So that's transgenerational, transcendental, right? And in a nutshell, that's what it is. The student was in the dimension of haggling, the distributive negotiation, right? And by asking why, you can go into the integrative, but then you understand what the other person is in a dimension of transgenerational or transcendental. The student is in a distributive type of dimension. So you need to understand the other side, where they're coming from. And when we talk about this, we thought, well, what does it take to be transgenerational, transcendental? What are the pillars? What is there to do, So I have a philosophical discussion and theological and so on with two people in Spain, Hernan Pereda and Enrique Martin. And after discussing all of this, we came out with the pillars of the transcendental negotiation, which are prudence. It's more important to be prudent than anything else, than pragmatic in negotiation, right? So that is like what to say, when to say, who to say it. How many people they're not prudent? They're actually imprudent. It's easier to find out imprudent, right? And then there is another one, which is being fair. It's more important to be just, fair, than win-win. So that's another, pillar. The other pillar, which is so important, it is discernment. That's how you analyze, is this good enough? It looks very good, but it's not good for you. Maybe you have to choose the next one. So that discernment is important in negotiation. A Harvard professor told me they never used this before in negotiation. I said they should use it all the time. That's important. Mm-hmm. Then the fortitude. Oh my God, fortitude is so important. Is resilience. Be resilient in the negotiation. Be resilient with your principles. Look at Ukraine. That's a great example of people that are resilient and they keep their principles. They don't give up, right? And so in negotiator, transcendental, they cannot give up. So sooner or later, that's going to be good for them, for the next generations. Now, the other one is temperance. In a negotiation, you cannot just do a tantrum and say, oh, I'm not going to deal with him. I found a lot of cultures, they actually prefer not to make a deal with somebody and lose the deal than making a deal. So that's ridiculous, because of a tantrum. So if you can moderate all those virtues in negotiation, that's fantastic, So that's what it's about, Transcend.
And thank you for this detailed explanation. In your book, which out of the three books that we've been discussing seem to me the most philosophical and really bringing the values, things that people don't discuss in everyday life as it seems any day long. People just deal, they are transactional a lot. They don't speak about those values. They don't tell anybody out of many reasons, being afraid to be heard, to be hurt, not being afraid, not being heard. So many reasons that people don't really show their values. Of course, sometimes you begin even to think that people don't have these values because they don't show them. But I wanted to ask you, one of the chapters in this book is the philosophy of giving. And I wanted you to expand on that because, again, with the Ukraine example, that is just next border to where I am, we are now, the Poles, the entire country, we do a lot of giving of ourselves. And I think even in the giving itself, there has to be prudence. And again, that comes back to some values and also to some negotiations when it comes to giving. Can you explain what you mean
Yes.
by that? What you
Yes,
cover?
the philosophy of giving and in negotiation, and it came from a scholarly paper that we've written before, and it has to do where if I satisfy your need, anybody needs, the need that I satisfy, the deeper the need is, the deeper the relationship becomes between the giver and the donor, and the giver and the receiver, right? And the deeper the relationship, the deeper the tradable, and then you become, for instance, if you are giving your house to somebody, and then you're letting everybody in, you're helping them, you're satisfying a deep need of those people, but then maybe that's not the need they have, but they might have another need, so that is deeper than that one. If that's the deeper need, then you are making a liaison with the other one. You are making like a link with them, and you will become, in the giver and receiver relationship, you can become like a minister, like somebody that is very reputable and they respect. Or it could be like a service provider. That's the lower end, right? The service provider is like, if I need a car, I go and look for you because I know you sell cars, and then you satisfy my need. That's it. But that's not enough. That doesn't have that strength, a strengthened link between giver and receiver. And in that case, the idea is also, and we discussed this, that some cultures, you give them a hand and they take the whole body, right? And then in some cultures, you give them a hand and they're so thankful. So it depends also on the culture, because there are some cultures, they believe they need more and they owe more you owe them, so that's a different story, right? But I'm talking about in a relationship where this culture is I never expected anything, and you give me, so I feel great, and the deeper the need is that you satisfy, the deeper the relationship. So that's the tradable. That comes back to tradables. That's how we explain it. Does that make
Thank you.
sense?
Absolutely.
And that's the basis of the transcendental negotiation, definitely.
Dr. Chamoun, I'm sharing the screen again. And for anybody who's listening to this podcast, check out the YouTube version so you can see the cover art. First off, it's a beautiful cover, and it says Transcend, vadis, Negotiator. Can you give us a little bit of insight into why the title is written that way?
Okay, that's a very good question. Quo vadis in Latin means, where are you going? And quo vadis negotiator, where are you going, negotiator? And, when St. Peter came to Rome, they asked him, quo vadis, where are you going? And then they hung him up upside down, and he died. So the question is, where are you going? What are you doing with your life? Are you just trying to get the best deal and that's it? What are you doing with humanity? What's happening with your humanity? Are we so, greedy that we don't care about anybody else? It's like a philosophical question where you ask the negotiator, where are you going? And in this case, you can think about, for instance, I have an example of one of my clients that I met him after many, many years of a story that he told me, where he was the supplier of a development park for kids, where they have games and all these things, right? So he was a supplier of maintenance and of all the equipment, right? So they changed the management of the park, of the amusing park, and the supplier, the new owner of the park, asked my client, who was the supplier of equipment and maintenance, could you give us a proposal to paint everything and change whatever you need to change? And he came back, I'm going to make a number. He said, this is $1 million, right? What's going to cost you? And then the new owner says, okay, well, just change, don't change any equipment, just paint it, and you get your $1 million, so you don't have to change equipment, so you get more profit, and you make it for $3 million, and you give me $2 million. Well, that's corruption, right? So my client said, I have a dilemma, like the dilemma of the negotiator. that night I need to talk to my brother, who is the co-owner. If we say yes to that, that's corruption, and we've never done that, and we're not going to do it. But if we say no, we're going to be bankrupt next week, because that's our biggest client. So what should I do? I ask this to kids, to middle school, to high school, to, MBA students. Well, you will be surprised how many will say we'll do it, because it's either we eat something or we are bankrupt, so we'll do it. So my client, he decided not to do it. And yes, soon enough, they were bankrupt. But he not only decided not to do it, he also wrote a letter saying, we are not doing it. And he's not a lawyer, but it's like a lawyer, right? We are not doing it because this could risk the life of kids. And we need to change this and this and this and this equipment, right? And they sign it, they turn it in and say, we won't do it. Few months passed, kids were killed in the place, it's a real case. And then they tried to sue them, right? My client, but they couldn't because he has this letter. So the point is, being honest, it pays off, He did the right thing. And yes, he was bankrupt for a little while, but then after a while, he came back to. So how do you transcend? So transcending is not being corrupt, trying to help the other. And because if you corrupt yourself, if you're being corrupt, you're going to suffer more than the other ones, in the long run. So the idea is, that's the idea of transcend. And like that, we make examples for students, for anybody to see, okay, to make a checklist and say, am I transcending, or am I making this deal? I have an example. When I was working for a company, I had a big decision to make, because I knew, after one of our chief engineers told us, that the re-engineering of that plant is not going to be feasible. The client is going to pay us, and this is not honest. So I have to tell my former boss at the company, we're not going to take this money. I mean, if he was corrupted, he would have taken it and I would be fired, right? I risked it and I could have been fired, and I wasn't. I'm happy that he was honest, and then we got a bigger job right after that, because we were honest. So the point of transcend, it reflects on the pillars, and then ask yourself, are you doing this in this negotiation? So that's an important element we need to have for mediation, I believe.
Dr. Chamoun, what I'm taking away from what you're saying is that being honest is being in reality, and perhaps dealing with facts too. If you are honest, you're dealing with what is actually happening and what you are actually relating to. You're not making an opinion or false assumptions. You're dealing in facts. And tying into your book, which is absolutely outstanding, I recommend that everybody go on to Amazon and see Dr. Habib Chamoun-Nicholas's books on negotiation and the art of the deal. They're essential for any mediator. You can't help your clients mediate unless they are in reality, as you just stated, and that they are doing it with a good heart, and they're doing it with authenticity, that they can look in a mirror the next day without feeling corrupt about it, that they can face themselves. And your book that you are on transcending, the takeaway, what would be the one key takeaway? You authenticity, you've just stated that. How does somebody hone that authenticity, or how do they hone that in themselves? People who might be marginal, who might be standing on a fence a little bit. Well, how would you tell them to?
That's, I mean, I had that question a long time ago. I mean, a long time ago. I was very young, and that was when the first Mexico devaluation happened. a long time ago, 30 years or so more, but anyway, more than 30 years. So anyway, I was with my father at his store. He sell everything, in the small town. And when the devaluation came, I came to him quickly and said that let's increase that 30%, the margin, and let's increase everything. I can price everything right away. And he told me something in Lebanese. He said, haram. Haram means poor, the people. Are you going to take advantage of them? Are you kidding me? He asked me that question. And I realized there that it's better to be fair than win-win, because in a way, you can win out of the situation and they won't lose because you're going to, it's a fair price anyway. But being fair with people is very important. So you always need to remember to be fair, be fair with yourself as well. So even if you are in a tough situation, don't take advantage of that, because you are in a difficult situation and really starving and I'm going to take advantage of that. No, the light will come. It's in the end of the tunnel, but you will see it. I have faith, you need to have faith in negotiation. Otherwise, if you lose yourself, you lose everything. If you lose a deal, it's nothing, I think.
And from what you say and the values in the book, and again, comparing it to the situation we have on the streets, I can see how important it is. The first thing in the morning I saw today was a post on Facebook that was saying that a woman in Poland found on the street a significant amount of money in a plastic bag with a credit card under the name X and YZ. And it
Uh-huh.
was clear it was Ukrainian. But the Polish lady, posted that on Facebook looking for this woman and saying, I already made the reservation and when I blocked this card so that nobody's taking an advantage of it. But
Mhm.
there is this name and last name, and there is this amount of money. Not, yeah, seems like. But if there is anybody who is of this identity, please come to me and find it. And I was very moved by that because I could also see, especially
Mhm.
now, that if more and more people apply these values, the
Mhm.
echo of that is even more. This
Mhm.
spreads. When you see how many people help, how many people give out of themselves, they are fair to their fellow citizens from the Ukraine. They are fair to themselves when giving out. They really can create new values and go
Mhm.
beyond. And this is why I wanted to also again go back to one of the final chapters in your book, which is called The Self-Fulfilling Prophecy.
Ah, yeah.
Uh, what can you say about that in terms of negotiations?
Well, in a short thing is like, if I am expecting you are going to be good, then you will be good. And if I expect you to be, I'm my own, the only, I'm my own prophet of my own future, right? I see you and I create something that then you're going to do it, right? But then what I will do in a way, and that links to the concept of tradables, which is the essence of the book in a way, is that when I was in Bogota, Colombia, I was in front of 400 Lebanese Colombians, just like Shakira, and ladies, and I was speechless right now. So they gave me a book with some ancient, Lebanese, and it says, Amel mich ukebel baher, which means do well and throw it to the sea. So, going back to what you're asking, you do well and throw it to the sea. My interpretation is, number one is because nobody will see you, right? And two, nobody will see you, but you won't see them either, right? One and two, not, and then three, the sea is so immense, so vast that you will all your life do well, and you need to do more, right? And then the fourth one is, the sea is dynamic. It's not static. Even if you don't expect anything, it will come back to you. But maybe not doesn't come to you exactly, like this lady that made this post in Facebook. It might come back to their son or the good one, the good things, or to the next generation. So we are cutting that by not doing well and throw it into the sea. That's my take, you know. So in other words, you know, in a negotiation, you know, if you do well, if you come with the good intention, if you look for the other one and see what they need and then satisfy that need, even though it's not part of what your deal or what you're wanting, then all of this will create a robust deal at the end, you know, in any way. I don't know if I answer your question or I, yeah.
Dr.
Absolutely,
Chamoun, that
yes.
was outstanding. And your books certainly contribute well to our Titan of Mediation series of Manousso Musing. And I thank you very much for offering this three-part series. So from Houston, Texas, and Newport, Rhode Island, thank you very much, Dr. Habib Chamoun-Nicholas, for sharing your wisdom on how to negotiate. And the big takeaway that you just presented to us was bring your moral compass to the table when you
Mhm.
negotiate. Thank you so much
Exactly.
today. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you.
Thank
Appreciate it very much. And until next time, guys, stay tuned for more. And check out all these episodes that we recorded with Dr. Chamoun on the Instant Mediations app. All right, take care.